Welcome to week 2 of the summer series, or as Helen and I said when we opened the summer series a week ago, we're almost ready to call it a summer meltdown, because I'm currently sat in the south of England where it is apparently, according to our media, one of the hottest places on earth right now, and we're just pushing records of 106 degrees. I know for some of you that might be easy, but for us right now, we are in the middle of our summer meltdown. It's hot, but so is our content. I said that to you last week as well. So we're on to week 2. We have 3 weeks of daily live learning, sharing, and inspiration from our community all around the world. We're here every day at the same time, so tune in to hear from amazing speakers sharing their stories with our community of inspirers. This event is brought to all of our community of inspirers free around the world, thanks to our partners on the summer series, H&H. And as with all of our content, whether you're watching it live or on demand, we will make sure that it is available shortly after today, so you can watch it on demand too. Whether you're joining us live or on demand, everyone here is automatically muted. So coughing, sneezing, whatever noise is absolutely fine, but that doesn't mean you don't have a voice. So please do join in the conversation. Add any of your comments in the comment section if you're watching just below here, or maybe to the side if you're watching on YouTube. Add any comments or questions or anything that you hear from the speakers. Do add it into the comment section, and we can bring that up for our speakers if you're watching live or afterwards as well. So far we've heard from Holly, we've heard from Charlie, and we've heard from Bob, all on different subjects around feedback, culture, well-being, and also sharing their award-winning case studies. What made Ocean State Job Lot the #1 most inspiring workplace? What made Intelligent Medical Objects win in the top 5 inspiring workplaces in North America too? We've been hearing incredible case studies and in hearing what these amazing organizations have been doing. And today I'm really excited to introduce not 1 but 2 speakers for today, and we are not going to be having any slides or anything visual as such today. We're going to be having what's called a fireside chat. Pardon another really hot pun there, but it is very hot and it does feel quite fiery. So having another fireside chat today, we have the wonderful Eleanor O'Mahony, who is from WorkVivo. O'Mahony, sorry, I keep getting that wrong, Eleanor, from WorkVivo. And we have Karl Burnett, who is the SVP of Human Resources at A&E Networks. They are going to be discussing what the case study is around how they have brought culture to life with media at A&E Networks. Organizations around the world are struggling to connect and engage with their people, whether that's through geographies, job functions, and more so now between the parallel between the office and the home environment. And for A&E Networks, that's no different. They have offices in London, Warsaw, and Johannesburg. They're truly global with a global workforce. So today, Eleanor and Karl are going to be discussing how they have navigated those challenges to engage their employees in new and creative ways. I'm really excited. Karl, Eleanor, welcome to the stage.
Hello.
Thanks so much, Ruth. Great. How are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very jealous of the aircon that you both have.
It's nice and cool here.
You're nice and cool. That's good. I'm really excited to hear this case study and to hear a different way of presenting it as well. So you're both going to be having a bit of a chat live on air for all of our viewers and listeners, and for anyone on demand, talking about how you've brought this culture to life on a global and geographical scale. So I'm going to get off the stage and take another slurp of my iced coffee, and I'll be back in 20 minutes or so to come say hi. Okay?
Fantastic.
Great. Thanks so much, Ruth, for the great introduction. And Karl, it's so great to have you on today. A&E are a brilliant partner of ours, so we're really excited to chat to you about what you guys have been doing over the last 2 years.
Fabulous. Thank you for the invite.
Brilliant. So we might start with, if you could just tell us a bit about A&E Networks, just for those who might not be familiar.
Yeah, no, sure. We, I guess we would describe ourselves as storytellers, really. Our vision, if you like, is to share stories that matter. We are a leading broadcaster of factual entertainment. We have award-winning content that reaches millions of homes across the UK, Nordics, Benelux, Germany, Italy, Spain, Central and Eastern Europe, the Middle East, Africa. We work in 6 offices across those territories, and we reach our audiences through linear television, but also catch up on demand, and most recently our sort of direct to consumer streaming services. We've got a portfolio of brands, the History Channel, or Sky History in the UK, Crime and Investigation, History 2, Blaze, and Cosmo Television in Spain.
Lots of familiar names there. And so in terms then of your staff breakdown, like geographically and by function, what does that look like?
So our biggest office is in London, a couple hundred people in London, and then about another 120 people spread across those other 5 territories. So Johannesburg in South Africa, Warsaw in Poland, Rome in Italy, Munich in Germany, and Madrid in Spain.
Big spread there. And so I understand you guys did do some corporate restructuring a few years back. So can you tell us a bit about that and kind of what were the challenges that cropped up as part of that?
Yeah, essentially, we were previously kind of an international arm of A&E Networks US. So across EMEA, there was a collection of wholly owned and joint venture businesses, entities, all with a reporting line back into New York. Without getting into too much detail, there was a merger of Fox and Disney in 2019, massive $70 billion sale. And when that merger took place, the European Commission determined that for competition reasons, Disney could no longer have a controlling stake of A&E brands across EMEA. So in the context of this big $70 billion deal, we were a relatively small unintended consequence of that, but it resulted in those entities in EMEA needed to come out from the responsibility of A&E Networks US, and so they were brought together under central leadership from London in partnership with the general managers in each of those territories. And so essentially, we had a group of entities that previously had not worked together, that now came together, and all the usual challenges, the challenges of building a team and starting to have something feel like one team, what was in common, what's different, the dreaded synergies, and looking to see how we could work more closely together, and then the challenge of COVID coming along, and making that sort of a little bit harder than it would have been if we were able to go and be with each other in person.
Sure, and it kind of sounds like a perfect storm of circumstances. And when that kind of happened and you were regrouping, did you do any exercise around your culture, and kind of how would you describe the culture at A&E and its importance kind of to your leadership team?
I'll steal a quote from someone else, but they describe culture as the reverberation of the myriad of interactions that go on within a workplace every day, every week. And I think that's a great way of describing it, because it's kind of a living thing, isn't it? It's sort of organic, and culture can't, by virtue of that how it's created, you can't sort of put it in a bucket, but it is so important. And there's that great Peter Drucker quote of culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I love that quote. And I regularly tease our COO about this quote to remind him of what's the most important thing. And that's not to suggest that, having a great strategy and brilliant execution isn't important. But I think what we do all recognize as a leadership team is that getting culture right is so much harder. One person can develop a strategy. It takes every single employee to really develop a culture. And so I think we know that it's really, really hard, but we've spent an enormous amount of time on it. We've done some of the sort of business 101 things in terms of developing a vision, a mission and purpose, and values and goals and KPIs and all of those things. But I would say the most important thing that we do is that as a leadership team and the wider organization, we spend time talking about our culture, and we dedicate the time to it. So as a leadership team, we will regularly have offsites, and rather than the usual sort of race for action points and operational lists of priorities and so on, and getting into the detail, we'll spend time talking about the culture, and we'll spend time talking about how we can improve the culture. So I think I'm very lucky that I've got a boss and a leadership team that really see this as a priority.
Yeah, and that's definitely what I hear from our colleagues who work closely from you, that the culture there is just brilliant. So all going well. You came across then WorkVivo around that same time, was it? It was around after the corporate restructuring, before COVID, before everything kind of changed.
Yeah.
What were you looking for around that time? What were you looking for in a solution?
Well, we had adapted an old kind of conference event app, actually, which was what we were using as a sort of as a tool to communicate, and really just to have some fun with, share some images of things that were going on around the organization. You know, we're lucky that we get to work with a lot of on-screen talent, and our crews and our creative team are out doing interesting things on interesting shoots, and we really want to share that with everyone. And so we developed this sort of app that we innovatively called it the app. When the corporate restructuring happened, what was clear was that was no longer going to be fit for purpose. We needed something that was going to really support the coming together of those different entities. And so we had some ideas about what we needed, but the key thing was about the social feed in whatever engagement platform we went with. The social feed, being able to share images and video, that was always going to be the most important thing that we were looking for. There were some other aspects that we wanted it to be an intranet, so a place to store documents and templates and so on, to be able to search within that storage. Video was always going to be really important for us, so it needed to work well with video. We wanted a traditional kind of news feed. We also it was quite important for us that we could segment the audiences, because we had these different teams coming together. It's really important that if we're updating the Hammersmith team about the new Greggs that is opening, we don't want to offend our colleagues in Italy who would never consider eating a sausage roll. And but more seriously, being able to target the messaging was really important. And I guess as we then got into the tender process, we were finding out more and more about the capability of these platforms. And so suddenly it was things like podcasts and live streams, live feeds, survey tool, poll tools, org charts, shout out, all of these other functionality that we could see were available to us. Yeah.
And so ultimately you did decide to go with WorkVivo. What kind of stood out to you about the platform, and how has it gone since?
I mean, look, ultimately, it's the look and feel of the product. It's a terrific product, and it ticked all those boxes. It's a great team. I wouldn't be sitting here having this discussion if I didn't really feel that WorkVivo is a terrific product. Our account manager, Sarah, feels like an extension to our internal comms team, really. And so we liked the team very much. The WorkVivo was quite a relatively early stage, and we quite liked being an early client. That was quite important to us. But I think probably, if I had to sort of describe it, it was really that there was sort of synchrony between what WorkVivo wanted to achieve in organizations and exactly what we wanted to achieve in our organization. There just seemed to be a lot in common. And whereas some of the other platforms had ideas that somewhat jarred with what we wanted to achieve, worked very much in harmony with what we were looking to deliver for our teams.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And so when you went to implement the solution, I believe that you took an interesting approach to announcing the new platform. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, we did. We had a little play with it because, I mean, we're lucky here that we've got creative teams and our promo producers and so on that deal with product launches or program launches and series launches and so on all the time. And so we spent a lot of time thinking about the branding and the what we really wanted to achieve. And so anyway, we had a bit of fun with it. We had a teaser campaign, as we would call it. And so over, I think 10 days, I think it was, every day, we released a new message. We did some nice creative HTML emails that were going, 9 days, it's coming, 8 days now, it's coming, but never told anyone what it was. And so it sort of drummed up quite a bit of interest with people. I was worried by the countdown had got to like 2 days to go. I was thinking, oh my God, are we going to disappoint people? Are they hoping for something, a huge party or something? But actually they loved the launch and it went down really well. So we sort of teased it in that way, and then I think we used some of the usual tricks of some bribery, some chocolate, Kit Kat, have a break, check out the base, as we call it. But it was really the sort of teaser campaign that got people interested.
Yeah, I think it's a really good example of an internal comms campaign that's creative, that you would see, externally, but to me, it's just a great example of something inspiring, whatever you're launching or whatever kind of initiatives you're running internally. So I know your team is running some other kind of amazing internal initiatives like podcasts, video content, competitions. And it's just really interesting to see you guys take that creative sensibility and bring it internally to really engage your staff. So how important do you think these are for your culture?
I mean, super important. It's a cliche, but communication is everything. And I think for us, again, as a creative organization, being creative with the way in which we do that is super important. And again, we're lucky that we've got those resources and those skills to hand. So we're creating websites all the time. We have podcasts that are number one in the Apple charts, our crime investigation podcast, for example. And so for us to then go, okay, let's create a podcast internally, isn't too much of a stretch. People know what they're doing, and we can do it without it sort of taking up loads and loads of time. It's a big effort, but it's manageable. And so things like that and communicating in different ways, I think you sort of have to assume that we've got a high bar of what would be acceptable communication, because these are professionals that work in that medium. And so for us, video is so important. We know how you can land a message with video so much better than you can with the written word. And so all of our messages, whether it's our CFO giving a quarterly update, that's a video. Our MD does a video every couple of weeks, and all of the leadership team, but not just the leadership team. Anyone that wants to get a message out there, get a group of people together for a reason, then we have a real emphasis on using video within the platform.
That's great. Yeah, and to that point, I suppose you've kind of opened the doors and allowed your employees from all over the organization have a voice and contribute to the culture, to the central conversation. What's been the impact of that? How important is it to you?
I think it would be quite alien if we hadn't. Actually, I think the nature of our organisation it's a relatively flat organisation. I think people aren't shy in coming forward and telling, speaking up about what they think is important. I think it would definitely feel quite alien. One of our values is be you, and we think it's really important that you can bring yourself to work and just be yourself. And so whether it's on the platform where we see, the biggest number of views are always the baby photo, the new baby photo, and the pets, cats sprawled across keyboards or whatever else. And so, but we love that, that's great to see that in there. The platform gives you the opportunity to send notifications around if there's key messages. So actually it's a free for all in between that. And that's why people, I think, engage with it. And you can have it on your phone, and you can sort of just check in on it in the same way you can on any sort of social feed. And so I think that's definitely the way that we would want to approach that. I mean, and it's not just on the platform though. I think about our stand-ups, our company meetings. My favorite one of the year is always when our interns do their presentation to the company. We always want to hear from everyone, and so that's just the nature of working here, I think.
Yeah, really important. Something we hear sometimes is there's trepidation among people leaders, among comms leaders, about kind of taking the leap to do something that bit more social and open. Do you have any advice for them? Do you think this kind of approach generally is good for other organizations?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's an expectation. Certainly, if you've got a younger workforce, then I think they would find it very strange not to have a voice. Social media means that you can tell anyone what you think, sometimes in a rather unhealthy way. But here, we've never. There's not been a single post that we've ever had to ask someone to take back down. We don't, everybody has access. Anybody can post, and anybody can post to anybody. So we don't limit it at all. I think I would encourage people to just sort of be brave about it. I think it's easier in a smaller organization like ours. Ours is, as I say, sort of 200 or 300 people, and so that's small enough that everybody knows everybody, and so there isn't the anonymity that you might get in a 10,000 person organization where someone might just sort of drop a bomb in there. But no, I would encourage anyone, certainly in the smaller organization, that's got to be the way forward. And in order to get real engagement, I think that's got to be the way.
Okay, yeah. And in terms of companies then who might be listening who have a low budget, do you have any advice for them? They're probably hearing all your wonderful campaign ideas and video content, maybe a bit intimidated. Is there any way that they can kind of engage their employees in creative ways?
I mean, this isn't expensive stuff. We're not spending loads of money on this. Our internal comms budget goes almost entirely on our physical events. We recently took the whole company to Rome and met up in Rome for a few days for a conference. That's where we spend our money, and I think that's money really well spent. But when it comes to our internal comms tools on the platform, most of it's free. And when we talk about video, my MD, the boss, our MD, just videos himself on his iPhone. And then posts it up. It's so simple, and that was when we were selecting the platform, the ease of being able to just take some film and put it straight onto the app. We call it the base, and to be able to do that really simply, really seamlessly was super important. So I don't think we are spending a lot of money. Creativity, get some people who've got some great ideas. We've got Rita, Anna, and Naomi who have all worked on the base over the years. Super creative team. great support from Sarah at Work Vivo. You can do this really low cost.
Great to hear. Great to hear. And then I was going to ask you about your approach to hybrid work. It just seems like everyone's kind of discussing at the moment, especially in the UK, you know, how many days, what's the best practice, how flexible do workplaces need to be? What has your approach been, and what's your assessment of the situation?
I mean, it's a fascinating time, right? It's been amazing, and this has been the biggest sort of challenge to office work in 100 years. You know, I think this is bigger than the introduction of computing. I think this is enormous, and we are like so many others. We're just finding our way, and I think that's a really important thing to begin with. Is, you know, let's not pretend that we know the answers. We know better than anybody else. We need to experiment and try things, and not rush to the answers. Let's just take our time with how it develops, and I'm really glad that we have done. We've seen a lot of organisations that have rushed to a completely remote workforce and that now have rowed back, and that's going to be really difficult. And so I'm glad that we've taken our time with it. We are unashamedly proud of our officers and the importance of being together physically. We think that's really, really important. We think that is the ingredient to the best collaboration, best form of collaboration. And so we're unapologetic about that. We really, really value having time in the office together. But in the same breath, it would be a complete lack of imagination to not see the many, many benefits of remote working that we've seen so much more through the lockdowns and so on. And so we've gone for the blended approach. We ask people to come into the office 2 days a week. At the moment, we have no sort of real rules around that. Some teams have a preferred team day, some teams don't. There isn't a sort of company day as per se at the moment. And we're having to think differently all the time about how do we make that feel really worthwhile and valuable to people. So events is really important, and what happens when people come into the office. We're having to rethink that quite a bit, but I think it's an exciting time. There's massive challenges, and I think what we see, it's not that hybrid working creates the challenges or creates the problems. I think the problems and challenges always existed, but I think they were easier to manage when we were all face to face. And so managing some of the pre-existing challenges, problems, managing those in a hybrid, it takes more effort. If you think about just recognition, it's so easy to walk along, bump into someone, say, "Hey, great piece of work, loved that, loved what you did," and pat on the back, metaphorically, whatever it is so easy when you're in person. To do that when you're remote, you have to be much more intentional about what you're trying to do. And so I think you have to be much more mindful. Inclusion is much more important. So I think that's hybrid work. It's sort of a fascinating problem for us to solve. But I think I'm pretty confident that we'll all be better for it in terms of work-life balance and so on.
Yeah, no, definitely. And do you think that the importance of the digital aspect, then digital workplace, does that become more important as a part of the puzzle with hybrid?
Well, without a doubt. I mean, again, we were sort of lucky that when COVID came along and we could see what was coming. We had an office in Italy, who, if you remember, when across Europe, they were particularly affected early on, and so it was clear what was going to happen. So we closed the office fairly early on, but we were able to do that because we already had an agile workforce with, simple things like laptops, right? If you've got a load of desktops, you've got a problem straight away. But we'd been on at our offices were all agile workplaces with laptops, and the technology that we had, we already saw the value in being able to edit remotely and being able to share our content remotely so that different people could work on it in different countries, different territories, different locations. So we were in a reasonable position to then cope with the sort of forced lockdown. So, but that digital upskilling is essential, and in our industry is probably one of the biggest challenges for us is just continuing to upskill everyone and find new skills, find new people sometimes. But the being digitally savvy is just an essential part of working life these days. And we're lucky that most of our children or young people that are coming into the workplace, they are very savvy, and they sort of look and laugh at the rest of us as we struggle.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I think digital is going to be an even bigger part, something we talk about a lot internally. I know we are under pressure for wrapping up now, Karl. So I just wanted to ask you one last question before we do, and it's kind of a broad one. What do you think is the biggest challenge facing people leaders like yourself today?
I mean, the obvious, we've talked about it already, blended working and just how we maintain culture and how we maintain morale through that. We've got pressing issues like the cost of living crisis affecting certainly all across Europe and beyond. So there's some very real pressures there. But I think it's probably a more generalist challenge, which is the need to diversify. The need for so many businesses, so many industries to diversify. And in some ways that's easy. It's the challenge of really remaining focused on your core business whilst you diversify. I think if you look back to the music industry where it just suddenly collapsed, that you kind of have to deal with that. But it's for our industry where linear TV viewing is still the core of our business. How do we continue to focus on that whilst developing new streaming options and so on? So it's the ability to diversify whilst remaining focused on your core.
Great. Well, on that note, thank you so much, Karl. I think Ruth's going to join us again, but It was great to hear about all that you guys have been through at A&E for the last 2 years.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karl, and thank you, Eleanor. I had so many questions when you were talking then, Karl, and every time I wrote a question down, Eleanor then just asked it, and I like I already knew. I had no idea what was going to be asked. I think that's what's the beauty of doing it differently, doing it in more of a chat style and an interview style, is Eleanor's got those questions ready, which the audience may have already had. I was like, what advice would you give to another company if they were going to launch? What would a company do if they didn't have any money? And you were asking all those questions as you were going along. So it was really, really, really insightful.
No one needs any more PowerPoint slides anyway, right?
No, and it's just really nice to hear a story in a story form, but also to hear your passion. And I really early on in this chat that you both just had, I wrote down a really beautiful line that you said there, which is one person can develop a strategy. And I think we talk a lot about strategy, and I know that we talk about culture. You talked about culture eat strategy for breakfast, but one person can develop a strategy, but it does take every single person in the organization to develop that culture, and you need every single person on board and with you. And it was really nice to hear that story about how you've gone about that, and how you've gone about that in lots of different ways through the Workvivo platform, but through away days and through storytelling and through vulnerable and authentic leadership and everything else in between. So it was really, really nice just to listen to two people chatting. So thank you so much for sharing that with the community. Eleanor, thank you for grilling Karl in such a nice way that we all learned so much as well. It was hugely insightful for me, so I'm sure it's been hugely insightful for anyone that's watching it live, but also on demand. So we'll keep the conversation going. If anyone has any questions or anything that they want to know about either Workvivo, Karl, A&E, I have twins. They're called Arthur and Ethan. I call them A&E all the time, so it kept throwing me. But if anyone's got any questions about anything that Karl's doing, A&E doing, Work Vivo, or anything else, then just drop it in the comments section here or get in touch. But from Ruth down to Inspiring Workplaces in the south of England that's melting at 106 degrees, Eleanor, Karl, and all of the team, Inspiring Workplaces, Work Vivo, H&H, and A&E Networks, thank you for tuning in to the hottest day of the summer series so far. And it's a massive thank you to Karl and Eleanor for today too.
Thanks very much.
Thanks so much, Ruth.
So much. And we'll see you soon.